What's up, gamers? We're back. Another Yu-Gi-Oh! Tier list. They're all overdone, but I'm here to give my opinion in the wide vacuum of things that doesn't really matter. Anywho, YCS Anaheim finished just this weekend, and of course, I am here to discuss what decks should you be considering. Now, understand this. There are plenty of rogue options and plenty of budget options for said decks. You don't have to play the most expensive hand traps if you don't want to. That is your choice and your choice alone. Understand, I want to give you a general idea of what decks should be good right now, should not be. You could try to stay away best you can, of course. And of course, we also did get the recent ban list, which changed a few, just a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a little bit. So I'm gonna start off with Heroes. So first and foremost, Heroes is always the fan favorite deck. Everyone loves Heroes, right? They get a lot of cool things. They got it as one-sided skill drink, a one-sided IO, one-sided macros, right? If optimally designed, Heroes is pretty good. I do like it. It is also a very good deck to OTK with because it can just do that. You know, it's Heroes. You know, I'll put Heroes. Depending on how I'm feeling throughout the rest of me recording this, Heroes is just kind of like there, because there's also the Primite version where they would search Elemental Hero Sparkman or Elemental Hero Clayman off a Primite load, right? Which then they can use to make Thunder Giant as a way to pop a card going second. I thought it was pretty cool. I do like that. I thought it was cool. Next up, I do got the big boys. First up, we'll go through the Ryzeal. Ryzeal, as you know, rank 4 deck, very low to the ground, but very high ceiling kind of deck. It is insane because all of their cards can special summon themselves, and they don't start a chain. A lot of them just search one another. It's really good. Duo Drive is a fantastic card. Detonator is a fantastic boss monster as well. Their field spell is really good as it negates on resolution, similar to Zexal weapon Twin Pegasus Saber, right, where on resolution you're like, okay, you can just negate it and you get to choose, which is fantastic. There's multiple monster cards effects in a chain. You can just choose which ones the most important ones to negate, which is really good. Not only that, but since it's a rank 4 deck, it also has the plethora of the entire toolbox at their disposal, of course, right? You have things like Castel, Tornado Dragon, Exoton Knight. Speaking of Exoton Knight, did you know it's a Light Fiend? And did you know that Triff, shout out to Triff, by the way, who played Fiend Smith Ryzeal, played Exoton Knight because that card alone gets you the full Fiend Smith combo. Crazy, isn't it? Anywho, yeah, it's probably now the best deck of the room as we speak, of course. And of course, can't talk about Ryzeal without talking about Malice. Ooh, whoa, well, not yet. I do think Malice is probably the second best deck after the recent changes. Malice is a very good Cybers deck. It falls into the unfortunate casualty of like, oh, it's a generic cyber stuff. They just play the generic cyber stuff, and what they do, but because of how the deck operates, you have to pay being banished and then gain bonus effects. The deck can put up really low to the ground boards and then just kill you on the spot on the crack deck because they have like 8 points of layered interaction that you have to contest with, because it's just stuff that the cyber stuff does, right? You have Meteorologic Aggregator, right, as a negate, which Ryzeal does also play, by the way, just to let you know. Juiceware Engrave. They have the Trap to special as a banished multi-target banish off of the Malice cards, right? Their field spell makes it so where you have to attack into the Malice links. Still a fantastic deck, and of course, these decks can play numerous amounts of hand traps to back it up. Still a fantastic deck. I do think it's like the second best deck right now, but things can change, things can happen, right? Next up, Sky Striker is a very fun deck. I do like it, but as of right now, it's not 2019 anymore. I don't think Sky Striker can compete with everything else because they don't have as much tools as all the other decks do in here. And since they're relying on so many spells, even with 3 engaged, it's just hard for them to keep up. But I just do like it. Shining Sark, I'm sorry, unless they give Yugi like 80,000 more good cards, it's not gonna do much. There's other builds you can put in like some supplementary engines, but it's just no, don't play it. It's bad. Unchained's pretty good. It's still a good, like, decent, like, Link deck, right? Of course. Sharvara and Sharvara, Soul of Yama, still fantastic cards. Unchained Abomination is still fantastic as well, of course. Deck is decently hard because you have to keep track of like what you need to keep in rotation, of course, what to pop, what you haven't summoned, what you did summon, use the multiple effects of the traps. But it is a little hard deck to pilot, but I still think it can get around with some stuff, of course, right? You do got Gold Pride, one of my favorite decks. Unfortunately, can't do anything with it. The deck doesn't have really any access to play the amount of non-engine, I would say, compared to the rest of these decks, and because of that, they can make some good boards, they can make some decent boards, but it's just they don't have anything to help interact off of that. They can get maybe 4 interactions at most, but after that, if they still have a extender to keep playing, it's just like, well, there goes me, right? Melodious, I've been wrong about this deck. I do think it's probably one of those sleeper heavy hitters, right? The idea is that Melodious doesn't really need a whole lot of another supplementary engine to make it tick, to make it work. The fusions are fantastic. They have quite a lot of locks in the format that are like, oh yeah, you can't target my stuff. Oh yeah, you can't attack into my stuff. They have a lot of locks that I was not aware about, and they're like pretty good, I'll be honest. Although, as much as I love Schuberta, I believe, the one that targets Engrave as like a soul release target to banish, right? It doesn't really help a whole lot against Malice, because Malice is like, oh yeah, just free extenders. Raizio kind of helps in a sense, but even then, the deck also can just play Herald of Orange Light as a new negate, which is fantastic. The main problem is that we still have yet to get Heavy Metal Fill's Electromite, and Electromite pretty much puts every pen deck up by like 15%, I would say. But I think this is one of very few decks that doesn't really care about Electromite, if I'm being honest. It's still very good. I still think it's like one of the better fusion decks right now as we speak. Sharks. I love me Sharks. We're just waiting on one spell for Sharks to be really good. 7th Tachyon, because it does everything for the entire deck. I'm saying that even as Raizio's not right next to waiting for that too, but Sharks, I like them, I really do. But there is a slightly better water deck out there, which is Mermails. Unfortunately, they're right. I do love Mermails. It does give me that old 2014 vibe. It's like, oh, it's fire water format again, right? It's Mermails versus the fire deck. They got new support in Rage of the Abyss. I thought it was really good. There's just one problem with Mermail. See, with the ban list, right, there's a certain card called Dimension Shifter that didn't get banned. Because of that, if you get hit by Shifter, it's it. That's over for you, right? You can't really do anything. All of the Mermails have to be specifically sent to the graveyard to trigger, and because of that, they play a very bad role against any shifter decks, or any deck, or not shifter decks, but any deck that can just play shifter, aka Malice, and or very rarely Raizio, if they can they can kill you on the turn that they activated shifter. I still think it's better than Sharks, right? But I do think that Sharks might get a good power boost, little one of the better rogue decks, right? That could, once we get 7th Tachyon, of course. The 7th Tachyon searches a lot of stuff. Whew. Exodia. Exodia's pretty good. I'll probably put it here. The Unstoppable Exodia is still a very, very powerful card. Spell and Trap negates, of course. Ankh is still a fantastic card, of course. My main problem with the deck is that you still play 5 bricks, which, in the very event that you do open all 5 pieces of Exodia, right? That's insane. But you're still playing 5 bricks, and that is still very hard to talk to someone about, because if you don't, because there's 2 things. You have to play the 5 bricks, and you have to play Ankh at 3, because Ankh is the most important card in the deck, right? All the other monsters, the Millennium cards, can special summon themselves, but you pay 2 stacks. If you don't pay 2 stacks, you have to reveal Ankh, and it's just like, not good, not good, very not good. Whew. Next and foremost, I do got Rescue Ace. Unfortunately, Rescue Ace, Original Simple Spoil Snake Eyes has been banned, and because of that, it is a very, very, very much harder to get to Hydrant. Now, I'm not saying that the deck is dead per se. No. We did get 3 Airlifter, right? Right? Let me push back on this, right? We did get 3 Airlifter, which is fantastic. However, OSS has been banned, and because of that, all the level 1 fires, unfortunately, have to say goodbye to Dio Bellstar. TG Rocket Salamander, Rescue Ace Hydrant, Jet Synchron, of course, Snake Eyes Ash, popular, of course. I unfortunately have to say au revoir to all those decks that benefit off of the OSS, but the deck could still set 4, and those set 4 are really, really powerful, of course. It's just, there are some decks that don't really care about them setting bet 4, because they're just gonna play the board breakers, that's a cool set 4, I'm gonna just activate Duster. And it's just, it's rough. It's very rough. I am very sad about all the fans of the fire decks. I'm so sorry. Plant's a very rare case with Plant, because it might not do well here, but in EU, of course, there's the 4 or 5 dedicated people playing Plants that will win a YCS or regional, because they understand that deck significantly more than everyone else does, and they are insane about it, right? But they also can't afford to play much smaller decks, because most Plant decks are 60 cards, while everyone else is pushing 40, 41, right? Maybe 42. I usually play 42, right? There are about 4 or 5 engines, and the lines diverge in this deck so frequently because of depending on what you drew and where you get hand trapped, right? It's rough. But I do think this deck is one of these hidden sleepers, right? Because it could just win a YCS out of nowhere, because it's like, hey, Plant diff, right? Runic still powerful in a vacuum. That Tip and is a lot of Runic variants are still inherently powerful, because you might be able to banish some of your stuff, but with Malice into contention now, you kind of don't want to banish there, because like, what if he hit a Malice card, right? It's like, ooh, I do think they're still fine, of course, but I don't think it's kind of the deck you want to play right now. Like, there's still a lot of like good variants, like the Runic Sprite stuff, Runic Fur Hires. You can play Runic Shining Star. It's very bad. Don't play that, actually. I have played it. It is very bad. It's still like a decent amount of like Runic variants that can still do a lot of good work. We got Chimera. Chimera's alright. in the extent that, you know, not like the recent ban list didn't really touch Chimera. Nightmare Apprentice still a fantastic card. It's also a very good deck where you can splash in another fusion engine, like Branded, of course. It's still good. It's just that it doesn't really benefit the fact that it can't play as many hand traps as another deck. Because you play Chimera, you have to play that certain amount of core of the Chimera stuff, and it's just like, oh, I don't want to play this many, but you kind of have to in a sense, right? Tempai, oh, goodness gracious, Tempai is dead in a sense. They have 3 Pydra, but now because of the ban list, they only have 1 Chandra, which is like the second most opponent card in the deck. Second Kaiman, and now 1 Field Spell. They only have 1 each of the Field Spell, Quick Play, and Chandra. Because of that, it is very much harder to OTK with this deck, which is great. Because I hate getting Tempai comboed. God, it's so annoying. It's so annoying. Yeah, they could just play more board breakers, right? Because they have, what, 4 more slots to put in board breakers, right? But at this point, right, you know, they lost Prospe. They lost 2 Prospe, right? They lost 2 Field Spell and Chandra and Kaiman. It's just so much harder for this deck to OTK. Now they just kind of have to pray that their opponent can stop their board breakers. Ritual Beast, it's pretty good. It's one of the few decks that can just main deck shifter, can't benefit out of it. There's a lot of lines that they can Protoss lock, they can set up some other things, of course. Ulti Canahawk, still fantastic card, because you can just gonna cycle that over and over and over and over. Still a fantastic deck. Very hard to pilot though, because I think you need to have like a degree in calculus to fucking micromanage all the beast effects that you haven't activated, because all of them are hard ones per turns, but you're gonna have to remember which ones you didn't activate, of course. We got Branded. I'm gonna put Branded right next to the Chimera because it's in the same idea that it's very variance of the brand stuff. You can play 60, you can play 40. There's a lot of stuff that can do. Of course, 2 ban hits, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare and Jalgan the Spearless have been banned, and those were the casualties of Albion the Sanctified Dragon. A walking mistake. It's just gonna summon those floodgates to you every single time. Now, my main problem with Brandon is that that's just their main game plan. They're just gonna summon lock you, right? And of course, you know, Nightmare and Jalgan's ban. Well, guess what? They're just gonna go to the next best option. Ra's Disciple, Edo, Arcla Christia in some variants I've seen, which is kind of insane, right? Flu, terribly so sorry, but I think it's time that you gotta put down the Flu. As much as I love Flu, the artworks, I hate playing against it. It might have a good matchup against the Malice stuff, of course, but they're such low to the ground that they could probably just break the Flu boards. They don't really care about it as much, and it's just like M-Pen Pass is fine against the Link deck, but against the Ryzo deck, they can just pop M-Pen, you know, have a detonator defense, just pop it. It's like, what are you gonna normal summon off of, right? Memento, pretty strong deck. I said this before, but I do think that Memento is one of those stronger sleeper decks because it has excellent lines against Perulia and Full Ross, where you get at max 2 draws, but it also cannot play into Shifter at all. If at any point you get shifted, I'm sorry, but just make an SP and pass at that point, right? It's still a very fantastic deck because a lot of people don't really read what Memento cards does, and they don't know what it do, and it shows, and the deck is still fantastic. Centurion, I'll probably put Centurion up there as well with it. Still very low to the ground, but high ceiling deck is that it's just they have access to the all of the level 12 synchros because of Crimson Dragon, and because of that, they have a plethora of options. Red Supernova to banish the whole field. Legacia, Auxilia, still fantastic cards in the archetype, of course. Protecting your back row or drawing an extra card, popping, maybe get an extra hand trap off of it. You have all the level 12 dragons. Stardust, Seafood Divine, Blazar, Supernova. I even played. I did play Stardust, Seafood Divine Dragon because against Arizio once because they could pop my cards, but Stardust Seafood protects them, and he's also at 4,000 attack. I was like, good luck, have fun. It's very good. It's still a very good deck. They still have 16 starters in a sense, right? The Field Spell, Chimera, Trudea, Bonfire, and Embla Oath. Am I doing the math right? Field Spell, Chimera. 15 stars. That's still pretty good, right? And of course, there's other variants like the Bestial one, White Forest. Speaking of White Forest, I'm putting White Forest right here because it's also a good. It's a very pretty good like synchro deck, but the problem with it is just you need to have to play another engine with it because you can't really do too much pure, right, until we get its new support, right? You have to play a supplement like the Toy Box engine or the Runic variant. Runic variant is probably my favorite one. You still also have the Centurion variant. I don't like that one because it just kind of clashes with the levels too much. You can make a lot of 10s, but I mean, I just prefer the Runic one because it gives you more interaction, I think. Mimical, for TCG exclusive archetype, you have nailed it out of the park. However, just one little problem. It's called Dominus Impulse. See, Dominus Impulse locks you out of Earth, activating Earth monsters effects. When you give your opponent a Mimical monster, right, and activate it, all of them are Earth monsters. And because of that, you can't really activate the flip kits to get the detrimental effect to them or to give them the supplement one. So, for example, Slime gets you a Mimical from deck, right? What's the other one? Cerberus banishes. Archfiend can give you an extra draw. You don't get those effects because of Dominus Impulse. That sucks. However, Mimical's second line of support is fantastic. It does give the deck an identity now, right? It's either a battle trick or it will basically just make you lose all your cards, and it's just great, fantastic. I do got Voiceless Voice. I'm gonna put it right here. You can make arguments that it's gonna be one of these ones here. It's one of those decks where it's a good mid-range deck. It doesn't really have to commit too much, right? With Perulia and Full Rust coming about, it's still a fantastic inclusion to play. It's right. It's also very simple. So Lowe's a fantastic card because it places cards face up. The continuous spells and traps, it just places them face up, right? So it just dodges Ash Blossom. That sucks, But for the Voiceless Voice player, good on you, man. I do think it's very good. Fire Kings, again, no OSS, but because of that, Fire Kings lost a lot of power on their own. Courtier Ocanix is still a fantastic starter for him, but it's just, if your opponent knows what they're doing, because we've been in the year of fire for a year and a half now, right? They just know when to stop your deck, and it's just rough because you can't really commit too much after that. They stop your Runics, they stop your Ocanix, of course, right? They stop FKI. Yeah, it's rough. Labyrinth, I'll put Labyrinth here as it's still the arguably best trap deck until some things change, right? It's still fantastic. Of course, there's a lot of traps. You could play DB area, of course, call XCs. You can't call Links, unfortunately, but hey, I mean, that's still an option, right? Yubel's still probably one of the better heavy hitters right now. It did lose one Phantom, but we did get Spirit Gates back at 3. So, Now, with Phantom, you can't use it all willy-nilly as a combo piece anymore, but now you have to use it as part of your inboard piece. Now, it isn't as bad as some people are saying, but because you can recycle Phantom off of the field spell, of course. So it isn't still that bad. I still think it's still probably one of the top better decks right now. It's still very good at breaking boards, and of course, you know, if you can't make a good enough board, hey, you still got the all-win con just crashing into your opponent, of course. I do got Snake Eyes. I'm putting Snake Eyes like fringe right here because they lose OSS, one Ash, one Poplar, right? Now it's just much harder for this deck to operate because they really need OSS. That's like their main combo piece deck. It's the glue that put everything together, right? It's like you make a gingerbread house, you stack it all up, make it nice and pretty, and then you realize, oh wait, I forgot to put the icing on everything, and then it just crumbles down. That's what OSS is for these decks, right? It held them together because it's just what makes them tick, you know. I do got Fenrir here as a representative for the Kashtira stuff, right? There have been some debacles, some arguments about Kashtira Unicorn in particular, of ripping your extra deck, and I say to that, I agree to some extent. You need to just be much smarter of what you hand trap with it, of course. Actually, I'm feeling more about this. Alright, Fenrir, Kashtira Unicorn alone as an engine to some other decks, of course, still great, and it's still one of the best removals. Banish face down. A lot of decks can't really recover from that, and because of that, they are still one of the big dark horses. Because like, yeah, it could probably win a YCS because if your opponent, if you time your stuff right, it's just oof. And of course, I got Mr. Fiend Smith here as a representative of the Fiend Smith stuff. I'm gonna put him right here. The idea of the deck is that it plays very low to the ground. You're not making the biggest boards, alright, because you're gonna be backing up with all the hand traps, of course, right? Now, I do say this, right? Please, do not shell out hundreds of dollars because engravers right now are like $100 as we speak. And it's just, ugh, you don't like that. But I will say that it's very low to the ground. They still make a very competent, decent end boards enough, and then the hand traps they are backed up on, right? You know, Ash, Veiler, Nibiru, Mourner, Impulse, Imperm, right? They still do some weird stuff, do some great stuff. It's just like it could beat most rogue matchups, and then of course like the heavy hitters, right? The big boys, the ones looking down on Fiend Smith Engraver, it's gonna have a rough time. Anywho, this is what I think. Feel free to call me an idiot. Feel free to say, oh no, this is better than that. Go ahead, please change my mind. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. I will see you all next time. Probably just another tier list. I'll probably do one for hand traps. Anywho, see you guys then.